It was the autumn of 1888. Fog drifted through the gaslit streets of Whitechapel, London's East End. Among the alleys and shadows, fear had a name: Jack the Ripper. He wasn't the first serial killer, but he became the most infamous. A ghost of the night who left behind no fingerprints, no motive, no trial. Just victims, fear and mystery. Over 130 years later, his identity remains unknown. But his crimes changed how society understood violence, class, and even the press. Let's take a deep dive into the chilling case of Jack the Ripper. Part 1. Victorian Whitechapel. To understand Jack the Ripper, we need to understand the world he haunted. Whitechapel in 1888 was a place of hardship. It was overcrowded, impoverished, and filled with desperation. Tens of thousands lived in crumbling tenements, many without running water or sanitation. Most residents worked long hours in harsh conditions, if they were lucky enough to find work at all. Alcoholism, crime, and homelessness were rampant. Women especially faced bleak choices. Many, like the Ripper's victims, turned to prostitution simply to survive. These were not sex workers by choice. They were domestic servants, widows, orphans, discarded by society. This environment created the perfect hunting ground, a place where people vanished and no one asked too many questions. Part 2. The Canonical Five. 5 women are widely considered the canonical victims of Jack the Ripper: Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Mary Ann Nichols was found on August 31st, 1888. Her throat had been slit and her abdomen mutilated. Just over a week later, Annie Chapman was discovered in a backyard, again with her throat cut and her organs partially removed. Then came the double event on September 30th. Elizabeth Stride was killed, but left relatively intact, possibly because the killer was interrupted. Less than an hour later, Catherine Eddowes was found in Mitre Square, horrifically mutilated, with organs removed and parts of her face disfigured. Finally, on November 9th, Mary Jane Kelly, the youngest and most brutally murdered, was found in her own room, her body mutilated beyond recognition. Each crime was more violent than the last, with surgical precision suggesting anatomical knowledge. But was it a doctor, a butcher, a madman? Part 3. The Name and the Media. The name Jack the Ripper first appeared in a letter sent to the Central News Agency. Signed with that now infamous moniker, it taunted the police and press. Whether the letter was truly from the killer remains debated, but it ignited the public imagination. The media frenzy turned a string of tragic murders into a sensation. Newspapers competed for readers with lurid headlines. Penny dreadfuls spread panic among the working class. For the first time, a killer had a brand, crafted by press hysteria and public fear. And the Ripper became not just a murderer, but a symbol of urban terror. Part 4. Police investigation. Despite deploying detectives, interviewing hundreds, and even receiving help from Queen Victoria herself, the Metropolitan Police failed to catch the killer. Crime scene contamination, lack of forensic science, and public interference all hampered the investigation. Some suspect that class prejudice played a role. The victims were poor women. Their deaths didn't draw the same outrage as those of the upper classes. Dozens of suspects were questioned. Over the years, more than 100 names have been suggested. These include Montague John Druitt, a troubled barrister who died shortly after the final murder; Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant with a history of mental illness; Prince Albert Victor, grandson of Queen Victoria, though this is widely debunked. In 2014, DNA analysis of a shawl allegedly found at a crime scene suggested Kosminski as the killer, but the evidence was inconclusive and contested. To this day, no one has been definitively identified. Part 5. Why he matters. Jack the Ripper's crimes didn't just terrify, they changed society. His case exposed the stark divide between the rich and poor in Victorian London. It drew attention to the vulnerability of working class women. It also marked the rise of modern policing. Crime scene procedures, criminal profiling, and forensic analysis all trace roots back to the Ripper investigation. Culturally, he became a symbol of the urban boogeyman, the predator lurking in the shadows of the modern city. From Sherlock Holmes tales to modern films, the myth of Jack the Ripper has echoed for over a century. But that myth often overshadows the real tragedy. 5 murdered women left voiceless by history. In recent years, historians have worked to restore their identities, not just as victims, but as women with families, histories, and humanity. We may never know who Jack the Ripper really was. He vanished into history, leaving behind only horror and speculation. But his story forces us to ask deeper questions. Why were the lives of poor women so disposable? Why does mystery captivate us more than justice? And who gets remembered in history and who gets forgotten? The shadow of Jack the Ripper still hangs over Whitechapel, but now it's joined by another light, one that shines on the women he tried to erase. Thank you for watching. If you found this deep dive thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more historical explorations. Let's give voice to the stories that matter